A little girl looks up at the most feared mafia boss in the city and says the unthinkable. "You need a wife, and my mom needs someone strong." Everyone freezes, because no one speaks to him like that. But instead of laughing her off, the mafia boss listens. And from that moment, her mother's life changes forever. What begins as a child's innocent matchmaking turns into a dangerous obsession. The boss doesn't just want to protect them, he claims them. And when the mother tries to escape, she discovers the terrifying truth: he's not saving her out of kindness. He's saving her because she's his weakness. And his enemies know it. Now, caught between a man who kills without mercy and a world that wants her destroyed, she has to make an impossible choice. Run from the monster, or fall in love with the only man who can keep her alive. But can a woman really survive when the mafia's deadliest killer decides she belongs to him? Tell me in the comments where you're watching from right now, and if this story speaks to you, make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. The crystal chandeliers cast golden light across the reception hall, but Elena Russo barely noticed their splendor. Her feet ached in the second-hand heels she'd bought for this wedding, her body still exhausted from working 16 straight hours at St. Mary's Hospital. She hadn't wanted to come to her cousin Maria's wedding at all, but family obligations were family obligations. "Sophia?" Elena called out, scanning the crowded room. Her 7-year-old daughter had been right beside her just moments ago, complaining about the itchy tulle of her flower girl dress. Now the space next to Elena was empty. "Sophia," panic started to curl through her chest. The mansion hosting the reception was massive, all marble floors and winding corridors. A child could get lost so easily. Elena pushed through clusters of guests, murmuring apologies as she searched frantically. "Has anyone seen my daughter? Dark curls, pink dress?" Her voice grew more urgent with each person who shook their head. The wedding guests were an odd mix. Her cousin's side of the family mostly working class like Elena, while the groom's connections included some of the city's most powerful figures. Elena had overheard whispers about certain guests being connected to organized crime, but she'd dismissed the gossip. Right now, she didn't care about anyone's background. She just needed to find her daughter. After 10 minutes of increasingly desperate searching, Elena heard familiar, childish laughter floating from a corner of the grand ballroom. Relief flooded through her, until she saw exactly where that laughter was coming from. Sophia sat perched on the lap of a man Elena had been deliberately avoiding all evening. Even if she hadn't known his reputation, everything about him radiated dangerous power. Dante Moretti lounged in an ornate chair like it was a throne, his black suit immaculate, his dark features striking. A small circle of clearly terrified guests hovered nearby, nobody daring to move closer or further away without his permission. "You're funny," Sophia was saying to him, completely oblivious to the tension around them, but also kind of sad-looking. "My mom says everyone needs someone to love them." Elena's heart stopped. Oh God, her 7-year-old was giving relationship advice to one of the most feared men in the city. "Sophia," Elena called sharply, finally finding her voice. But her daughter wasn't finished. "You need a wife," Sophia announced with all the wisdom of a child, patting Dante's perfectly tailored sleeve. "And my mom needs someone strong who won't leave like my dad did." The silence that followed was deafening. A few nervous titters broke out among the guests, quickly stifled when Dante's dark gaze swept the room. Elena wanted the floor to open up and swallow her whole. "Sophia Maria Russo," Elena strode forward, face burning. "Get down from there this instant." To her horror, Dante Moretti's attention shifted to her. His eyes were like obsidian, unreadable yet intense, as they traveled from her flushed face down to her sensible shoes and back up again. The corner of his mouth lifted slightly. "Your daughter is charming," he said, his voice a low rumble that seemed to vibrate through Elena's bones, and quite insightful for her age. "She's 7 and has no filter," Elena snapped, then immediately regretted her sharp tone when she saw several guests flinch. Nobody spoke to Dante Moretti that way, but her maternal instincts overrode her common sense. "Sophia, come here now." Sophia pouted but slid off Dante's lap. "But Mama, I was just helping." "Mr. Dante gave me cookies from the fancy plate that the servers wouldn't let me have." "That's enough," Elena said firmly, grabbing Sophia's hand. She forced herself to meet Dante's gaze again, fighting the urge to shiver at the predatory interest she saw there. I apologize for my daughter disturbing you, Mr. Moretti. No disturbance at all, he replied smoothly. In fact, I found her company refreshing. Most people aren't so honest with me. The way he said it made it clear why. His reputation for dealing harshly with those who crossed him was legendary. Elena tugged Sofia closer to her side. We need to leave now, she said, as much to herself as to Sofia. Say goodbye to Mr. Moretti. Bye, Sofia waved cheerfully. Remember what I said about finding a wife? Sofia, Elena hissed, mortified all over again. She practically dragged her daughter away from Dante's corner, feeling his eyes burning into her back the entire time. The crowd parted for them like the Red Sea. In the car, Elena's hands shook slightly as she buckled Sofia into her booster seat. We need to have a serious talk about wandering off and talking to strangers, young lady. But Dante wasn't a stranger, Sofia protested. He's Maria's new cousin-in-law or something, and he looked lonely. That doesn't matter, Elena said firmly, sliding into the driver's seat. You can't just walk away without telling me where you're going. I was worried sick, and you certainly can't climb into people's laps and tell them they need to get married. I was just trying to help, Sofia said, lower lip trembling. You work so hard, Mama, and you get sad sometimes when you think I'm sleeping. Mr. Dante looked sad too. Sad people should help each other be happy. Elena's throat tightened. Sometimes her daughter's perceptiveness broke her heart. Baby, it's not that simple. The world, it's complicated. There are people we need to stay away from, even if they seem nice. Because they're dangerous? Sofia asked innocently. I heard Aunt Rosa whispering that Mr. Dante was dangerous. But he didn't seem scary to me. He had nice eyes when he smiled. They got all soft and crinkly at the corners. Elena glanced in her rearview mirror, watching the mansion grow smaller behind them. For a brief moment, she thought she saw a figure standing in one of the upper windows, but she quickly dismissed the notion. Her nerves were just making her paranoid. Just promise me you won't wander off again, she said, focusing on the road ahead, no matter how nice someone seems. I promise, Mama, Sofia yawned, the late hour finally catching up with her. But I still think you and Mr. Dante would be good together. He needs someone brave like you. Elena didn't respond, but her daughter's words echoed in her mind. She remembered the way Dante Moretti had looked at her, like she was a puzzle he intended to solve, whether she wanted him to or not. A shiver ran down her spine that wasn't entirely from fear. What she didn't know was that at that very moment, Dante Moretti stood at his office window in the mansion, watching their car disappear into the night. His expression was contemplative, as he swirled expensive whiskey in a crystal tumbler. Elena Russo's fierce protectiveness, her complete disregard for his reputation when it came to defending her child, had awakened something in him. Her defiance should have angered him. Instead, he found himself intrigued. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. Sir? The background check you requested on Elena Russo is ready. Dante didn't turn from the window. And, single mother, works as an emergency room nurse at St. Mary's. No criminal record. Her father is Judge Marcus Russo. Now Dante did turn, his expression sharpening with interest. Judge Russo, the man who had betrayed the Moretti family 5 years ago, leading to a cascade of violence that had nearly destroyed everything. The judge had disappeared shortly after, leaving his only daughter to fend for herself. How fascinating that fate had delivered Marcus Russo's daughter right into Dante's path. And how convenient that she happened to be exactly the kind of woman who captured his attention. Beautiful, fierce, and clearly devoted to family above all else. Elena's heels clicked against the worn linoleum of her apartment building's hallway, echoing her determination. Her shoulders were set, her jaw clenched. She'd rehearsed this conversation with her landlord a dozen times during her morning commute. 3 months behind on rent wasn't her fault. The hospital had cut overtime hours. And Sofia's medication wasn't cheap. The landlord's office door stood ajar, the peeling gold letters reading management catching the fluorescent light. Elena knocked twice, straightening her scrubs. Come in, mister, Patterson called out, his gravelly voice carrying through the gap. She stepped inside, met by the familiar musty smell of old paperwork and cigarettes. The elderly landlord peered at her over wire-rimmed glasses, his expression unusually pleasant. Miss Russo, I was hoping to catch you. He shuffled through some papers on his cluttered desk. There seems to have been a mistake with your account. Elena's heart sank. Mr. Patterson, I can explain about the rent. I know I'm behind, but… Behind? He blinked at her, genuinely confused. No. Your balance is paid in full. In fact, he squinted at his computer screen. You're paid through the next 6 months. The words hit her like a physical blow. That's impossible. I haven't… Wire transfer came through this morning. Everything's squared away. He smiled, revealing tobacco-stained teeth. Nice to see you getting back on your feet. Elena stumbled out of the office, her mind racing. 6 months of rent? That was thousands of dollars. She definitely hadn't paid. Her phone buzzed a reminder to pick up Sophia from school. She'd sort this out later. The autumn air was crisp as she hurried to her beat-up Honda. The drive to Sophia's private school was automatic, her thoughts elsewhere until she pulled into the circular drive. She needed to talk to the administration about pulling Sophia out. There was no way she could keep up with tuition. The school's reception area smelled of lemon polish and old books. Mrs. Henderson, the elderly secretary, brightened when Elena approached. Oh, Mrs. Russo, we received the payment this morning. I was going to call and thank you. Elena's blood ran cold. What payment? For Sophia's tuition. Mrs. Henderson tapped at her keyboard. The entire year has been covered, including the outstanding balance. It's such a relief. We'd hate to lose such a bright student. Elena gripped the edge of the counter, her knuckles white. There must be some mistake. I didn't make any payment. Mrs. Henderson frowned. The wire transfer came from… She squinted at her screen. Moretti Holdings. The name hit Elena like electricity. Moretti, the man whose lap Sophia had climbed into just yesterday. The dangerous man everyone whispered about but never directly named. She somehow made it through collecting Sophia, forcing a smile as her daughter chatted about her day. The drive home was a blur of paranoid glances in her rearview mirror. When they reached their apartment building, Elena noticed the changes immediately. A sleek black SUV was parked outside, and 2 men in expensive suits were unloading grocery bags from its trunk. Mrs. Russo? One approached, his manner professional but distant. These are for you. Before she could protest, they'd carried everything up to her apartment: premium brands, fresh produce, imported pasta, enough food to fill her empty cupboards 3 times over. We'll be making weekly deliveries, the second man informed her, handing over a receipt she hadn't asked for. Mr. Moretti insists on quality. They left before she could form a coherent response. Sophia was already excitedly exploring the bounty, pulling out fresh fruit and expensive chocolates. Mama, look. Real strawberries. Elena's hands shook as she put away the groceries, trying to process what was happening. When she glanced out her window, she spotted another man in a dark suit standing near the building's entrance, scanning the street with practiced efficiency. Fury and fear propelled her downstairs. The security guard straightened as she approached, his earpiece gleaming. Ma'am? What are you doing here? Elena demanded, her voice low to avoid attracting attention. Ensuring your safety, ma'am. Mr. Moretti's orders. I don't need protection. I don't need any of this. The guard's expression remained neutral. Mr. Moretti disagrees. He values your security. My security? Elena laughed, the sound brittle. I was perfectly fine before. With all due respect, ma'am, you were 3 months behind on rent, facing eviction, and about to pull your daughter from her school. His words were precise, clinical. Mr. Moretti believes you should feel safe. Elena stepped back, chilled by how much they knew about her situation. Tell Mr. Moretti to stay away from my daughter. I'm just here to watch the building, ma'am. She turned and fled back upstairs, her heart pounding. Sophia was sitting at their small kitchen table, homework spread out, happily munching on fresh strawberries. The sight of such simple joy made Elena's chest ache. The lock engaged with a solid click as Elena secured their door. She leaned against it, trying to steady her breathing. That's when she saw it, a black envelope on the floor, having been slid under while she was confronting the guard. With trembling fingers, she picked it up. The paper was thick, expensive. Inside was a single black card, embossed with a stylized M in silver. The message was written in elegant script. Dinner. Tomorrow. Don't refuse. Elena sank to the floor, the card clutched in her hand. The scent of fresh strawberries filled the apartment while outside. The guard continued his patrol, and somewhere in the city, Dante Moretti waited for her answer, though they both knew it wasn't really a request. She stared at the card, remembering the way Sofia had innocently climbed into his lap, the way the wedding guests had frozen in terror, the way his dark eyes had followed her as she dragged her daughter away. She'd thought that was the end of it. Now she realized it was only the beginning. The sound of Sofia humming as she did her homework drifted from the kitchen, impossibly normal against the surreal turn her life had taken. Elena pressed her forehead against her knees, the black card still clutched in her hand, trying to figure out how to protect her daughter from a man who had already invaded every aspect of their lives in less than 24 hours. The restaurant's elegant facade loomed before Elena, like a beautiful trap. Two men in dark suits flanked the entrance, their watchful eyes following her every move as she approached. Her hands trembled as she smoothed down her simple black dress, the nicest thing she owned, yet still woefully inadequate for a place like this. The door opened before she could reach for it. Inside, the restaurant was empty of regular patrons, the warm lighting casting intimate shadows across pristine white tablecloths. Crystal glasses sparkled like diamonds. The air smelled of expensive wine and power. Miss Russo. A suited man materialized beside her. "This way, please." Her heels clicked against marble floors as she followed him through the restaurant. Each step felt like walking deeper into the lion's den. Other men, Dante's men, she assumed, stood at strategic points throughout the space, their presence both protective and menacing. And then she saw him. Dante Moretti rose from his seat at a corner table, the most private spot in the restaurant. The sight of him stole her breath. He wore a perfectly tailored charcoal suit that emphasized his broad shoulders and commanding presence. His dark eyes captured her, held her, claimed her. "Elena." His voice was warm velvet wrapped around steel. "You look beautiful." She lifted her chin. "I didn't have much choice about coming, did I?" A slight smile touched his lips as he pulled out her chair. "Sit." It wasn't a request. Elena sat, her spine rigid as Dante moved to his own chair. A waiter appeared instantly, pouring wine into her glass without asking if she wanted any. "I took the liberty of ordering for us both," Dante said, studying her face. "The chef here makes an exceptional ossobuco." "You always make decisions for others?" Elena challenged, though her voice wasn't as steady as she'd like. "Yes." He didn't even pretend otherwise. "I find it more efficient." "And what about what other people want? Tell me, Elena." He leaned forward slightly. "What do you want? To keep struggling with rent? To work double shifts while barely seeing your daughter? To live in that neighborhood where 3 assaults were reported last month alone?" Heat flooded her cheeks. "You've been investigating me. Protecting you," he corrected. "There's a difference." The first course arrived. Delicate plates of antipasti that probably cost more than Elena made in an hour at the hospital. She picked up her fork, needing something to do with her hands. "I didn't ask for your protection," she said quietly. "Sofia did." Elena's head snapped up. "Leave my daughter out of this." "Impossible." Dante took a sip of wine, his movements graceful and controlled. "She's part of the package. The babysitter I sent tonight is excellent, by the way. Former preschool teacher, extensive background checks, trained in first aid." Before Elena could respond, her phone buzzed in her purse. Her heart jumped. Sofia's ringtone. She reached for it automatically, then hesitated, glancing at Dante. He nodded. "Answer it." Elena's hands shook slightly as she retrieved the phone. "Sofia, is everything okay, baby?" "Mommy." Sofia's cheerful voice filled the line. "Miss Sarah made cookies, and she knows how to draw horses way better than you do." Despite everything, Elena smiled. "That's wonderful, sweetheart. Are you being good?" "Uh-huh. Is your friend there? The one from the wedding?" Elena's eyes met Dante's across the table. Something in his expression had shifted, softened almost imperceptibly at the sound of Sofia's voice. "Yes, he's here. Can I say hi?" Before Elena could respond, Dante held out his hand for the phone. She hesitated, then passed it over, watching warily as he brought it to his ear. "Hello, Piccola," he said, his voice gentler than Elena had heard it before. "Are you enjoying your evening?" Sophia's excited chatter was audible even from across the table. Dante listened with what appeared to be genuine attention, his lips curving slightly. Yes, drawing horses is very important. I'm sure your mother would love to see them. Be good for Miss Sarah, yes? When he handed the phone back, Elena saw a flash of something almost vulnerable in his eyes before his usual mask slid back into place. She finished her conversation with Sophia quickly, promising to be home soon. The main course arrived as she put her phone away. The osso buco was, as promised, exceptional, but Elena could barely taste it. Her mind was spinning, trying to make sense of the man across from her, the dangerous crime lord who could so easily switch from threatening to tender. Your daughter, Dante said after a moment. She has your spirit. She has nothing to do with whatever this is, Elena insisted. This, Dante gestured between them, is me ensuring your safety and comfort. Nothing more sinister than that. And I don't get a say in it? No. His tone was final. You're mine to protect now, Elena. The sooner you accept that, the easier this will be. I belong to no one, she said fiercely. Dante's smile was dangerous and beautiful. We'll see. As the dinner drew to a close, Elena's nerves were frayed from the constant tension, from trying to read between every line of their conversation. When Dante rose to escort her out, she felt almost relieved, until he caught her hand. His lips brushed her knuckles, the gesture somehow both courtly and possessive. His touch sent electricity racing up her arm, and she hated her body's betrayal, hated how she couldn't quite pull away. You'll see, he murmured against her skin. You're already mine. Elena yanked her hand back, her heart pounding as she hurried from the restaurant. Outside, the cool night air did nothing to calm her racing pulse. A black car waited to take her home, another decision made for her. As she slid into the back seat, Elena wrapped her arms around herself, trying to stop trembling. The worst part wasn't Dante's threats or his control or even his touch. The worst part was the tiny voice inside her that whispered maybe, just maybe, being his wouldn't be so terrible after all. Elena's shoes clicked against the sidewalk as she guided Sophia home from the corner store, trying to maintain a semblance of normalcy. 5 days had passed since that unsettling dinner with Dante Moretti, and though she pretended not to notice, his presence lingered everywhere. The same black sedan cruised their street. Mysterious packages appeared at their door. Even the local shopkeepers treated them differently, with a mixture of fear and deference that made Elena's skin crawl. Mom, can we have ice cream tonight? Sophia skipped beside her, swinging the plastic shopping bag filled with basic groceries. After dinner, sweetheart. Elena forced a smile, trying to shield her daughter from her growing unease. The spring evening was pleasant enough, with golden sunlight painting the brick buildings in warm hues, but something felt off. The street was too quiet, too empty for this time of day. A car engine roared to life behind them. Elena's heart jumped as tires screeched against asphalt. Before she could process what was happening, the sharp crack of gunfire split the air. Down, Elena grabbed Sophia, pulling her behind a parked car. Her daughter's frightened scream pierced through the chaos as more shots rang out. Glass shattered somewhere nearby, and the metallic ping of bullets striking cars filled the air. Mommy? Sophia sobbed, clinging to Elena's shirt. Keep your head down, baby. Elena's nurse training kicked in as she shielded Sophia with her body, trying to assess their surroundings through the haze of terror. Multiple shooters, she realized. This wasn't random. It was an ambush. The squeal of brakes cut through the gunfire. A sleek black SUV skidded to a stop beside them, and the rear door flew open. Elena's heart nearly stopped as Dante Moretti himself reached out, his expression deadly. Get in, now. Elena hesitated for a split second, but another burst of gunfire made the decision for her. She lifted Sophia and practically dove into the vehicle, Dante's strong hands pulling them to safety. The door slammed shut as the SUV accelerated, tires smoking against the pavement. Are you hurt? Dante's voice was tight with controlled rage as his hands moved over Elena, checking for injuries. When she shook her head, he turned to Sophia, his touch gentling immediately. Princess? Sophia hiccuped through her tears but managed a tiny no. Elena watched in stunned silence as Dante's men moved with military precision, surrounding another vehicle that had been cornered at the end of the street. Through the bulletproof glass, She saw 4 men dragged out at gunpoint. "Stay here," Dante ordered, his voice brooking no argument. He stepped out of the SUV, and Elena's blood ran cold as she watched him approach the captured men. His movements were predatory, elegant in their deadliness. "Cover her eyes," Dante called back, and Elena quickly pressed Sophia's face against her chest. But she couldn't look away herself as Dante drew his weapon with fluid grace and fired point blank into one man's head. The body crumpled like a puppet with cut strings. Elena's stomach lurched at the casual violence. But what truly terrified her was how beautiful Dante looked in that moment. Like an avenging angel, terrible and magnificent in his wrath. He turned back to the SUV, and the contrast nearly broke her mind. His hands, which had just ended a life without hesitation, now gentle as they wiped tears from Sophia's cheeks. "No one will ever hurt you, Piccola," he murmured, his thumb brushing Sophia's trembling chin. "I promise you this." Elena saw it then, the duality that made him so dangerous. This man could execute someone in cold blood, then tenderly comfort a crying child moments later. The realization sent shivers down her spine. "Take us home," Elena managed to say, her voice shaking. "Please." "No." Dante's tone was final as he settled back into the SUV. "Your apartment isn't safe anymore. You're coming to my estate." "But..." "This isn't a discussion, Elena." His dark eyes met hers in the rearview mirror. "Those men were sent to kill you, to get to me. Your old life ended the moment Sophia sat in my lap at that wedding." The SUV glided through the city streets, leaving behind the scene of carnage. Sophia had stopped crying, her small body heavy with exhaustion as she curled against Elena's side. Elena stared out the window, watching familiar landmarks fade away, and realized with growing dread that Dante was right. There was no going back now. The city gave way to manicured grounds as they approached massive iron gates. Elena caught glimpses of armed guards patrolling the perimeter as they drove up a winding driveway toward a mansion that looked more like a fortress. This was Dante's world, a world of luxury and violence, of tender touches and brutal executions. And now, whether she wanted it or not, it was her world too. Elena woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows, momentarily disoriented by the unfamiliar luxury surrounding her. The bed felt impossibly soft, nothing like her worn mattress at home. Silk sheets whispered against her skin as she sat up, memories of last night's violence crashing back. "Mommy, look at this bathroom. It's bigger than our kitchen." Sophia's excited voice echoed from the adjacent room. Elena pressed her fingers to her temples, fighting a headache. Her daughter seemed completely unfazed by their forced relocation, treating it like some grand adventure. The suite Dante had given them was larger than their entire apartment, decorated in cream and gold with antique furniture that probably cost more than she made in a year. "Sophia, honey, don't touch everything," Elena called out, swinging her legs off the bed. Her nurse's scrubs from yesterday felt out of place against the opulent backdrop. A knock at the door made her tense. "Miss Russo?" A woman's voice. "Mr. Moretti asked me to bring you some clothes and necessities." Elena opened the door to find a middle-aged housekeeper holding several shopping bags. "I didn't ask for..." "The boss insists," the woman said kindly, setting the bags down. "Breakfast will be served in 30 minutes. There are clothes for both you and your daughter." Before Elena could protest, the housekeeper had disappeared. Sophia bounded over, already digging through the bags. "Look, Mommy, pretty dresses." Everything was exactly their size. The thought of Dante knowing such intimate details made Elena's skin crawl. She helped Sophia dress in a pale blue sundress, then reluctantly changed into a casual but clearly expensive outfit, herself dark jeans and a silk blouse that fit perfectly. When they descended the grand staircase, Dante was waiting in the foyer. He wore a charcoal suit that emphasized his broad shoulders, looking every inch the dangerous man he was. But his expression softened fractionally when Sophia ran to him. "Good morning, Piccola," he said, his deep voice gentle. "Did you sleep well?" "Your house is like a castle," Sophia exclaimed. Elena's jaw clenched. "This isn't our home. We're leaving after breakfast." Dante's dark eyes met hers, hard as obsidian. "No, you're not. You can't keep us prisoner here. Tour first, then we'll discuss your safety." His tone left no room for argument. He placed a hand on Elena's lower back, guiding them toward the dining room. She wanted to shake off his touch, but knew it would only amuse him. The breakfast spread was extravagant. Fresh fruit, pastries, eggs prepared 3 ways. Sophia dug in enthusiastically, while Elena barely touched her food, seething silently. After breakfast, Dante led them through the sprawling estate. The grounds were beautiful, with manicured gardens and a pool that made Sophia squeal with delight. But Elena noticed the armed guards patrolling the high walls, the security cameras covering every angle. This wasn't a home, it was a gilded cage. "Your old apartment isn't safe," Dante said as they walked. "Those men last night were targeting you to get to me. We wouldn't be in danger if you hadn't inserted yourself into our lives," Elena snapped. He stopped, turning to face her. "Your father's sins put you in danger long before I came along, Elena. You just didn't know it yet." She flinched at the mention of her father. "I haven't spoken to him in years. Doesn't matter. In our world, blood debts pass down." His expression darkened. "I'm protecting what's mine. We don't belong to you." "Mommy, look at the roses," Sophia called from ahead, oblivious to the tension between them. Dante's face transformed as he looked at the little girl. "Would you like to pick some for your room, Piccola?" Sophia nodded eagerly. They spent the next hour in the garden, Dante patiently teaching her the names of different flowers while Elena watched, unsettled by how natural they looked together. The day passed in a haze of luxury and imprisonment. Dinner was served in a formal dining room that could seat 20. Sophia chatted happily about everything she'd explored, while Elena pushed food around her plate. "May I be excused?" Sophia asked when she finished. "I want to read my new books. I'll read you a story before bed," Dante offered, surprising Elena. In Sophia's room, already decorated like a princess's chamber, Elena sat in an armchair while Dante settled beside Sophia on the bed. He read with different voices for each character, making her giggle. Elena's chest tightened watching them, confused by this gentler version of the man she'd seen execute someone just yesterday. After Sophia fell asleep, Elena retreated to her own room, closing the door firmly. She paced the plush carpet, trying to sort through her tumbling emotions. The image of Dante reading to Sophia kept overlapping with the memory of him pulling that trigger, blood spraying across the pavement. She couldn't let herself be fooled by his moments of kindness. No matter how tender he was with Sophia, no matter how those dark eyes softened when they looked at her daughter, he was still a killer who had forced them into his world. Sinking onto the window seat, Elena stared out at the moonlit gardens. She would find a way to resist him, to protect Sophia from his dangerous world. But as she pressed her forehead against the cool glass, all she could see was the way his hard features had transformed while reading that bedtime story, revealing a glimpse of the man beneath the monster. Elena woke to sunlight streaming through silk curtains that probably cost more than her monthly rent. Her new gilded prison still felt surreal after a restless night of tossing and turning. She dressed quickly in clothes that had mysteriously appeared in the closet, all perfectly her size, which was unsettling. The marble halls echoed with her footsteps as she ventured out to explore. Men in dark suits nodded respectfully as she passed, their weapons visible beneath tailored jackets. They weren't guards meant to keep her in, she realized. They were soldiers protecting what Dante considered his. In the kitchen, she found Sophia happily eating pancakes, shaped like hearts, served by a grandmother-type cook who beamed at the little girl. The domestic scene felt jarring against the backdrop of danger Elena knew lurked beyond these walls. "I see you're making yourself at home." Dante's voice came from behind her, making her jump. He looked devastatingly handsome in a charcoal suit that highlighted his broad shoulders. His presence filled the doorway, commanding attention without effort. "Are we guests or prisoners?" Elena challenged, lifting her chin. "I can't tell with all the armed men around." A slight smile played at his lips. "You're whatever you want to be, Kara." He stepped closer, his cologne teasing her senses, "though I prefer to think of you as protected." "Protected?" She scoffed. "More like controlled. Is there a difference when it comes to keeping you safe?" His dark eyes held hers, intense and unwavering. Sophia's giggle broke their standoff as she showed off her syrup-covered creation. Dante's expression softened as he praised her artistic breakfast skills, and Elena felt that familiar confusion seeing his gentleness with her daughter. Throughout the day, Elena explored the sprawling estate, finding a library filled with leather-bound books, a conservatory bursting with exotic plants, and a pool that Sophia would love. Everything spoke of old money and power. The men she passed treated her with careful respect. She was under their boss's protection now. As evening fell, Elena found herself restless. Sophia was asleep, tucked into her princess bed, but Elena's mind wouldn't quiet. She wandered the halls, telling herself she was just exploring, not looking for him. A strip of light under a heavy wooden door caught her attention. Without thinking, she pushed it open and froze. She'd stumbled into what was clearly Dante's private office. He sat behind an imposing desk, jacket off, sleeves rolled up to reveal powerful forearms. Papers were spread before him, but his attention snapped to her immediately. "Elena, to what do I owe this pleasure?" I'm sorry. I didn't mean to intrude." She started to back away, but his voice stopped her. "Stay." It wasn't quite a command, but close enough to make her bristle. "I'm not one of your men to order around," she snapped, temper flaring. He rose slowly, like a predator uncoiling. "No, you're far more dangerous than any of my soldiers." He moved around the desk with fluid grace. "I'm not dangerous at all," Elena protested, even as she backed away. "No?" He advanced until her back hit the bookshelf. "You've already disrupted everything I thought I knew about myself." Her heart thundered as he planted his hands on either side of her head, caging her in. "What are you doing?" she whispered. "Teaching you why you should be more careful about wandering into a devil's lair." His face lowered toward hers, and Elena's breath caught. But instead of kissing her, he brought his lips to her ear. "You make me feel things I thought died years ago. That makes you very dangerous indeed." The heat of him surrounded her, his scent filling her lungs. Elena's hands pressed against his chest, meaning to push him away, but somehow ended up clutching his shirt instead. The tension crackled between them like lightning about to strike. With a growl that sounded almost pained, Dante pushed away from her. "Go, before I forget all the reasons I shouldn't touch you." Elena fled, her legs shaky, her skin burning where he'd been close to her. She barely remembered the journey back to her room, locking the door behind her with trembling fingers. In the mirror, her reflection showed flushed cheeks and bright eyes. Her fingers traced her lips, still tingling from the almost kiss. Fury rose in her chest, at him for affecting her this way, at herself for wanting what she shouldn't. She was supposed to hate him, fear him. He was a killer, a criminal who had essentially kidnapped her and Sophia, but her traitorous body remembered the heat of him, the raw passion in his eyes, the way his voice roughened when he spoke to her. Elena pressed her forehead against the cool glass, closing her eyes. How could she fight him when she couldn't even trust herself? A week settled into an uneasy rhythm at the Moretti estate. Elena found herself falling into a routine she never wanted but couldn't escape. She spent her mornings helping Sophia with schoolwork in the sun-drenched conservatory, the armed guards a constant presence at the perimeter. Dante watched them from a distance, his dark gaze following their movements. Sometimes Elena caught him lingering in doorways, observing Sophia's animated chatter about math problems or history lessons. His expression would soften for a moment before hardening back into the mask of Il Diavolo. The evening air carried a chill when the first gunshots echoed across the grounds. Elena was reading to Sophia when heavy footsteps thundered through the halls. Men's voices shouted in Italian, urgent and angry. "Stay here," Elena told Sophia firmly, tucking her into bed. "Don't come out, no matter what you hear." She crept downstairs, drawn by the commotion. In Dante's study, she found chaos. Blood stained the expensive carpet as Dante's men dragged in a struggling figure. The rival thug's face was already swollen, his clothes torn. "Found him planning another hit," one of Dante's men spat. "He's the one who threatened to grab the woman and kid." Dante stood with terrible stillness, his white shirt pristine against the violence around him. "Everyone out," he commanded softly. "Except him." He nodded to the captured man. Elena knew she should leave, but her feet wouldn't move. She pressed herself into the shadows as Dante approached his prisoner. What followed burned itself into Elena's memory. Dante's questioning was methodical, brutal, each strike calculated, each cut precise. The man's screams echoed until they didn't. Through it all, Dante never raised his voice, never showed emotion. This was business. When the end came, it was swift. A single gunshot that made Elena flinch. She watched Dante wipe his hands clean with deliberate care, his movements almost elegant despite what he'd just done. The boss is getting soft, one soldier muttered to another. All this over some woman and her kid? Dante moved like lightning. In seconds, he had the man pinned against the wall, forearm crushing his throat. Elena and Sofia are untouchable, he snarled. Question that again, and you'll join him. He jerked his head toward the body on the floor. The soldier's face purpled as he nodded frantically. Dante released him with disgust. Elena fled upstairs, her heart pounding. Hours later, a knock at her door made her jump. Dante stood there, his shirt changed, but shadows lingering in his eyes. May I come in? The politeness seemed absurd after what she'd witnessed. Elena stepped back, allowing him entry. I saw what you did. I know. He moved to the window, staring out into the darkness. That man would have hurt you. Hurt Sofia. Is that supposed to justify it? No. His voice grew distant. Nothing justifies what I've become. But I can't be anything else now. Something in his tone made Elena step closer. What happened to you, Dante? He was quiet so long she thought he wouldn't answer. I had a sister, he finally said. Younger, beautiful. She was. Everything good in my world. His hands clenched. When they killed her, they killed that part of me too. I wasn't meant for this life. I was studying law, planning to leave it all behind. But after Maria, he shook his head. My father was getting old. Someone had to take control, ensure it never happened again. Elena touched his arm gently. The burden of power. The curse of it. He turned to her, his eyes burning with something raw and desperate. You make me remember who I was, who I could have been. It terrifies me. The confession hung between them, heavy with possibility. Elena saw it then, the man beneath the monster, as wounded as he was dangerous. Without thinking, she reached up and pressed her lips to his. For a heartbeat, he remained still. Then something snapped. His arms crushed her against him as he deepened the kiss. Years of controlled passion breaking free. Elena gasped as he lifted her, carrying her to the bed. Their clothes fell away, hands exploring, marking, claiming. When he entered her, it was with the same intensity he brought to everything. Absolute, overwhelming, inescapable. Elena surrendered to it, to him, their bodies moving together in a dance as old as time. The world narrowed to sensation, his mouth on her skin, his hands gripping her hips, the sound of their shared breath in the darkness. They came together in an explosion of pleasure that left them both trembling. As they lay tangled in the sheets, Elena knew there was no going back. She had crossed a line, chosen a side. Heaven help her, she had fallen for the devil himself. The morning sun painted golden streaks across Dante's silk sheets as Elena stirred awake. Her body ached in places that made her cheeks flush, memories of the previous night flooding back. Dante's side of the bed was empty but still warm, and his scent-expensive cologne mixed with something darker lingered on the pillows. Elena pressed her face into the sheets, conflicted by how right it felt to wake up here. The weight of his protection, which had felt like a cage just days ago, now wrapped around her like armor. Her fingers traced the expensive thread count, so different from her worn cotton sheets at home. A knock at the door made her jump. Miss Russo? It was Maria, one of the maids. Mr. Moretti asked me to bring you fresh clothes and coffee. Elena wrapped herself in the sheet, calling out, just a moment. She found Dante's discarded shirt and slipped it on before opening the door. Maria entered with a tray and a garment bag, her eyes carefully downcast. Will you be joining Mr. Moretti for breakfast? Sofia is already in the dining room. The mention of her daughter snapped Elena back to reality. Yes, thank you. I'll be down shortly. After a quick shower and change into the clothes Dante had provided a casual but clearly expensive dress, Elena headed downstairs. She paused in the hallway, hearing Sofia's bright laughter mixing with Dante's low rumble. The sound made something warm unfurl in her chest, but before she could enter the dining room, voices from Dante's study caught her attention. Two men, she recognized them as Marco and Giuseppe. High-ranking soldiers were speaking in low tones. Can't believe the boss is actually keeping them here, Marco was saying. All this over Judge Russo's daughter? Elena froze. Her father? She hadn't spoken to him in years, not since he'd abandoned their family. Smart move, though, Giuseppe replied. Having the judge's daughter as leverage. Boss has been planning this since he found out she was at that wedding. The world tilted sideways. Elena pressed a hand against the wall, bile rising in her throat. Leverage. She'd been leverage all along. Though, way he looks at her now, Marco continued, think it's more than just business. Never seen him like this, not since. Elena didn't wait to hear more. She stumbled back, her mind racing. The wedding. Sophia sitting on his lap. It hadn't been coincidence. None of it had been coincidence. She forced herself to breathe, to think. The rent payments, the school fees, the protection, all of it calculated. An elaborate trap using her own desperate situation against her. Somehow, she made it through breakfast, watching Dante interact with Sophia through new eyes. Every gentle gesture, every warm smile, had it all been manipulation? The way he looked at her daughter with such tenderness, was that fake too? She waited until Sophia was occupied with her tutor before confronting him in his office. He looked up as she entered. That small smile he reserved only for her playing at his lips. The sight made her want to scream. Your men are quite chatty, she said, her voice steady despite her racing heart, especially about Judge Russo's daughter being such valuable leverage. The smile vanished. Dante set down his pen, his face unreadable. Close the door. No. Elena lifted her chin. I want witnesses when you admit you've been playing me this whole time. He moved with that fluid grace that usually made her pulse race but now just made her feel sick. The door clicked shut behind her. It's not that simple. Really? Because it seems pretty simple to me. You saw an opportunity at that wedding. Poor nurse. Struggling single mom. Daughter of the judge who betrayed you. Perfect target, right? Initially, yes. His honesty cut deeper than any lie. Your father's betrayal cost lives. Having you as leverage was strategic. And Sophia? Was using my 7-year-old daughter part of your strategy too? Something dangerous flashed in his eyes. I would never use Sophia. But using me was fine? Elena laughed bitterly. Last night, was that strategy too? Dante moved closer, but Elena backed away. Elena, listen to me. Yes, it started as leverage, but it changed. You changed everything. Don't. She held up a hand. Don't you dare try to twist this into some love story. You're exactly what everyone says you are, a monster who uses people like chess pieces. I am a monster. His voice roughened. But not with you. Never with you. Prove it. Elena met his gaze. Let us leave. Right now. The silence stretched between them, heavy with everything unsaid. Finally, Dante spoke, his words careful. You know I can't do that. It's not safe. Because of you. We're only in danger because of you. Elena backed toward the door. Everything you touch turns to violence. I won't let that happen to my daughter. Elena, don't follow me. She fled to her room, tears burning her eyes. Through the window, she could see Dante's men patrolling the grounds, their dark suits stark against the manicured lawn. The estate that had started to feel like home now felt like a prison again. She waited until well past midnight, when the guard rotation was changing. Sophia didn't question being woken up. She'd grown used to sudden changes these past weeks. Elena packed light, just essentials in a small bag. The security cameras had blind spots. She'd noticed them during her daily walks. With Sophia's hand clutched tightly in hers, Elena slipped through the shadows of the estate, past the distracted guards, through the garden gate that was always left unlocked for the gardener's early morning arrival. Into the darkness, away from the man who had made her feel safe and used all at once. Moonlight filtered through the thin curtains of room 213 at the Parkview Motel. Elena paced the cramped space, her footsteps muffled by the worn carpet. Every shadow made her jump. Every distant car sound sent her heart racing. The peeling wallpaper and flickering fluorescent light in the bathroom seemed to mock the luxury she'd left behind at Dante's estate. Mommy, I'm scared, Sophia whispered from her perch on the sagging bed. Her small hands clutched her stuffed rabbit, the only possession they'd managed to grab during their escape. Elena's chest tightened. Everything will be okay, baby. The lie tasted bitter on her tongue. Nothing was okay. She'd trusted Dante, given herself to him, only to discover she'd been nothing but a pawn in his revenge game against her father. The digital clock blinked 3:15 in the morning. Elena's mind raced through their options. They needed new identities, somewhere far away. Her meager savings wouldn't last long, but she couldn't risk using her credit cards. Dante would track those in seconds. A floorboard creaked outside their door. Elena froze, her mother's instinct screaming danger. Before she could move, the door burst open with a splintering crack. 3 men in dark clothes stormed in, their faces hard and unfamiliar. Not Dante's men. These were strangers with cold eyes and cruel smiles. The Moretti whore, one of them sneered, his accent thick with Eastern European hatred. "Not so protected now, are you?" Elena's body moved on pure instinct. She shoved Sophia toward the narrow space between the bed and wall. "Hide, baby. Don't come out." Sophia scrambled under the bed, her small body disappearing just as rough hands grabbed Elena's arms. She fought like a wild animal, kicking and clawing. "Please," she begged, not for herself but for her daughter. "She's just a child. Leave her alone." "Shut up!" The leader backhanded her across the face. Blood filled Elena's mouth, but she kept struggling. As long as they focused on her, they might not search for Sophia. "The boss wants to send Moretti a message," another man growled, zip-tying Elena's wrists. What better way than taking his new toy? Elena's mind raced. These weren't random thugs, this was organized retaliation against Dante. The same rivals who'd tried to attack them before, who'd caused them to flee to his estate in the first place. Now her attempt to escape him had delivered her right into their hands. From under the bed, Sophia whimpered softly. Elena's heart stopped, but the men were too busy dragging her toward the door to notice. "I'll come quietly," Elena said loudly, trying to cover any sound her daughter might make. "Just don't hurt anyone else." They roughly pushed her out into the night, the pavement cold under her bare feet. A black SUV waited in the shadows. Elena's last glimpse of the motel room showed the door hanging off its hinges, the bed where her precious Sophia hid beneath barely visible in the dim light. "Dante will kill you all for this," she spat, buying time, praying Sophia would stay hidden until help came. The leader laughed. "That's the plan, sweetheart. He'll come for you and we'll be ready." They shoved her into the vehicle. As they peeled out of the parking lot, Elena's tears finally fell. Not for herself, but for Sophia alone in that room. For the trust she'd broken by running from Dante. For the mess she'd made of everything. Back in room 213, Sophia curled into a tight ball under the bed, her stuffed rabbit clutched to her chest. Her mother's words echoed in her head. "Stay hidden, stay quiet." But the silence now was scarier than any noise. Minutes stretched like hours as she lay there, trembling. Heavy footsteps thundered up the exterior stairs. More voices, deeper ones, filled the night. Sophia squeezed her eyes shut, ready to scream until a familiar voice cut through her terror. "Sophia!" Dante's voice cracked with something she'd never heard before. "Fear! Elena!" She crawled out from under the bed, tears streaming down her face. "They took Mommy." Dante swept her up in his arms, his usual controlled demeanor shattered. His men swarmed the room, checking every corner, calling out reports. But Dante's focus was solely on the trembling child in his embrace. "Did they hurt you?" His voice was gentle, even as murder blazed in his eyes. Sophia shook her head. "Mommy made me hide. The bad men didn't see me." Dante's jaw clenched so hard Sophia could hear his teeth grinding. His arms tightened around her protectively as he surveyed the destroyed room. The signs of struggle, the blood drops on the carpet that could only be Elena's. "Sir," one of his men approached cautiously. "We found tire tracks, heading east." Dante's expression transformed into something terrifying, pure, unrestrained rage mixed with devastating anguish. He'd let Elena slip away, and now she'd been taken by his enemies. Sophia buried her face in his neck, and his hand came up to cradle her head automatically, even as his voice promised death. "Find them," he commanded. "Find them all." Dante's footsteps echoed through the marble halls of his estate, each stride carrying the weight of barely contained rage. His men scattered before him, their faces pale with fear. They had never seen their boss like this, his usual calculated control replaced by something far more terrifying. "Find them," he growled, his voice cutting through the tense silence of his war room. "Every contact, every rat, every shadow. I want them all bleeding at my feet." Around the massive oak table, his captains shifted nervously. One cleared his throat. "Boss, the Rossetti family has protection from—" The crystal tumbler in Dante's hand shattered against the wall. "Protection?" A deadly smile curved his lips. "There is no protection from me. Not anymore." He pulled out his phone, dialing numbers that hadn't been touched in years. Old debts. Ancient favors. Within hours, the underworld trembled as Dante Moretti, Il Diavolo himself, declared open season on anyone who stood between him and Elena. In the garden, Sophia's small figure caught his attention through the window. The sight of her alone, without Elena, twisted something in his chest. He watched as his most trusted guard, Marco, tried to coax her into eating lunch. Dante stepped outside, the afternoon sun doing nothing to warm the ice in his veins. Sophia looked up at his approach, her eyes so like her mother's filled with tears. "Will Mommy come back?" Her voice was small, fragile. It reminded him of another little girl, long ago, who had trusted him to keep her safe. His sister. The memory burned like acid. Dante knelt before Sophia, his massive frame becoming less intimidating as he met her at eye level. His hand, capable of ending lives without hesitation, gently wiped away her tears. "Listen to me, Piccola. I will bring your mother home. If I have to burn every city, break every bone, kill every person who tries to stop me, I will bring her back to you." Sophia threw her arms around his neck, and something in Dante's chest cracked. This child, who should fear him, trusted him completely. Just like Elena had begun to, before his phone buzzed. A text from his intelligence network. Dante's eyes darkened as he read the message, his jaw clenching until it hurt. "Marco," he called sharply. The guard appeared instantly. "Take Sophia inside. Make sure she eats." Back in his office, Dante spread out surveillance photos across his desk. The Rossetti compound on the outskirts of the city. Heavy security. At least 30 armed men. They thought their walls would keep them safe from him. His lieutenants gathered, waiting for orders. Dante traced a finger along the compound's perimeter on the map. "Here. And here. We breach at 2 points. I want chaos. Confusion. Make them scatter like rats." "Boss," his oldest captain ventured. "This could start a war. The other families—" "The war began the moment they touched what's mine." Dante's voice carried the finality of a death sentence. "I want our best men. No mistakes. No survivors." He opened his safe, pulling out weapons he hadn't touched in years. Special guns, untraceable, the tools of his bloodier past, before he'd become the polished businessman the world saw now. As his men prepared, Dante visited the security room. The footage from the motel played again, Elena being dragged away, fighting like a wildcat. His hands curled into fists. They had dared to put their hands on her. Every single one of them would die screaming. The intelligence was solid. Elena was being held in the compound's east wing, probably in the basement cells, where the Rossettis kept their special guests. The thought of Elena in those cells made his vision go red. In his bedroom, Dante changed into black tactical gear. His fingers brushed the silk sheets where Elena had lain in his arms just days ago. The memory of her smile, her defiant spirit, the way she challenged him while everyone else cowered it all fueled the rage building inside him. He checked on Sophia one last time. She had finally fallen asleep, clutching one of Elena's sweaters. Dante tucked the blanket around her small form, making a silent vow. By tomorrow, her mother would be back, and the world would remember why they called him Il Diavolo. In the courtyard, 50 of his best men waited in formation. Cars idled, weapons were checked, plans confirmed. Dante stood before them, his presence electric with controlled violence. Tonight, he addressed them, his voice carrying across the yard. "We remind them what happens when they cross the Moretti family. No mercy, no prisoners. Elena Russo comes home, or we paint the city red." The men nodded grimly. They had seen their boss fight before, but this was different. This was personal. This was love turned to vengeance, and none of them doubted that Dante would tear the world apart to get Elena back. As they moved out in a convoy of black SUVs, Dante checked his weapons one final time. The intelligence had come through. Elena was alive, for now, but if they had hurt her, if they had touched a single hair on her head, his phone buzzed with final confirmation of her location. Dante's eyes gleamed with deadly purpose in the darkness of the car. The time for negotiation, for business, for rules, it was all over. Tonight, he would remind the underworld why they feared his name. Elena's wrists burned against the coarse rope binding her to the metal chair. The warehouse air hung thick with dust and the metallic tang of her own blood. Her ribs screamed with each breath, punishment for her earlier attempts to fight back. But they hadn't broken her. They would never break her. She closed her eyes, conjuring Sophia's face. Her daughter's laugh. The way she scrunched her nose when concentrating on homework. The warmth of their morning hugs. These memories were her armor, her reason to endure. A distant pop echoed through the warehouse walls. Then another, and another. Gunfire. The guards near her tensed, drawing weapons. More shots rang out, closer now, accompanied by screams that cut off too quickly. The warehouse doors exploded inward with a thunderous crash. Through the haze of dust and debris, Elena saw him, Dante Moretti, transformed into something primal and terrifying. His expensive suit was gone, replaced by tactical gear splattered with blood. His eyes blazed with a fury she had never witnessed before. He moved like death itself. 2 guards fell before they could aim. Another rushed him with a knife, only to have his neck snapped in one fluid motion. Dante didn't even pause. Each movement was precise, lethal, practiced. These weren't the calculated executions of a mafia boss. This was pure, unleashed rage. You thought you could take what's mine. Dante's voice carried over the chaos as he advanced on Giorgio Rossetti, the rival boss who had orchestrated her kidnapping. The man raised his hands, starting to speak, but Dante was beyond words. His hands locked around Rossetti's throat. The crack of bones echoed through the warehouse as Dante crushed his windpipe, watching with cold satisfaction as the light faded from his enemy's eyes. "She is mine," he snarled at the corpse. "She will always be mine." Then he was at Elena's side, gentle fingers working at her bonds. The contrast was staggering. The same hands that had just killed without mercy now touched her as if she were made of crystal. "You're mine," he whispered, his voice rough with emotion. "Forever." Elena stared up at him, seeing past the blood and violence to the truth beneath. No one had ever fought for her like this. No one had ever turned the world to ash just to reach her. In that moment, something shifted in her heart. Dante gathered her into his arms, cradling her against his chest. She felt the tremor in his muscles, the racing of his heart. Around them, the warehouse began to burn, flames licking up the walls. But Elena felt only safety as Dante carried her through the inferno, shielding her from the heat and smoke with his own body, treating her like the most precious cargo he had ever held. Elena sat in Dante's lush garden, her bruises still healing as Sophia snuggled against her side. The evening sun painted everything in warm gold, but she felt the weight of Dante's dark presence behind her like a shadow. He hadn't left her side for more than minutes since the rescue, watching her with possessive intensity. "Mama, look at the butterflies." Sophia pointed excitedly at the flowers, but even as Elena smiled at her daughter's joy, she felt the familiar tension coiling inside her. She couldn't keep living in this beautiful prison of uncertainty. Standing carefully, mindful of her injuries, Elena turned to face Dante. "Sophia, sweetheart, can you give Mama and Dante a minute?" Sophia skipped off to chase butterflies, still within sight but out of earshot. Dante's eyes narrowed, sensing the confrontation coming. "I can't do this anymore," Elena said, her voice trembling but determined. "I can't be just another piece in your game, a pawn you collected for leverage against my father. I can't love a man whose first answer is always violence." Dante's face remained impassive, but something flickered in those dark eyes. Then, to Elena's shock, he dropped to his knees before her, the fearsome Il Diavolo, on his knees in the dirt of his garden. "You were never just a pawn," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "Yes, I targeted you because of your father. But Elena," he grabbed her hands, pressing them to his chest, "I was empty before you, a ghost ruling an empire of blood. You and Sophia. You brought color back into my world." His fingers tightened on hers. "You think you're my weakness? You're my salvation. Every life I've taken, every cruel choice, it was all leading me to you. To protect you. To deserve you." Elena's heart thundered in her chest. "I've seen what you're capable of. The violence in you will always be there," he finished. "But now it serves a purpose beyond power. It serves love." His eyes blazed up at her. I love you, Elena. Choose me. Choose us. Tears spilled down Elena's cheeks as years of walls crumbled. I do love you, she whispered. God help me. I love every dark piece of you. Sophia came running back, her timing perfect as always. She grabbed both their hands, beaming up at them. See? I told you. You needed each other. Dante rose, pulling Elena into his arms. His kiss was fierce and claiming, but tender too, a promise of protection, of passion, of forever. Elena melted into him as the setting sun painted them in gold, knowing that in his darkness, she'd finally found her light. Sophia giggled, hugging their legs. They were an unlikely family. The devil, the nurse, and the little matchmaker who brought them together. But in that moment, in the peaceful garden, they were simply whole. If this story made you pause, reflect, or even smile, don't forget to subscribe. I post daily, and the next story might be exactly what you need to hear.